Glass is a mirror. It reflects everything. Your lights, your camera, your stands, yourself. Most product photographers try to hide this by wrapping the bottle in massive soft sources, hoping to create one clean, even reflection. But I wanted to do the opposite. In this tutorial, I'll show you how I lit this Laphroaig bottle using only hard light and precision reflectors. By the end, you'll understand how to light any reflective source, from glass bottles to cars. The principles stay the same, the sources just get a little bit bigger. Let's break it down. First, let's look at what we're actually lighting. Laphroaig 10. It has its iconic green glass, high contrast white and black label, embossed lettering with a beautiful texture. When I look at this bottle, three things stood out immediately: the long, elegant neck, the sloped shoulders, and the character in that green glass. Those became my focal points. Everything I did with the lighting was designed to reveal these details. The label texture, that needs side light to show dimension. The green glass, that needs backlight to come alive. The neck and shoulders, those need controlled reflections that follow the contour. These observations aren't random. They dictate every lighting choice that follows. You need to understand your subject before you place a single light. Here's what I use, and more importantly, why each piece mattered. For the key light setup, I use a Nanlite FC500B, fitted with a 36-degree spotlight attachment. This is illuminating the Betty Light's Flux 50 precision reflector. Why this combination? The spotlight gives me total control. It's shapeable with zero spill, which is critical when you're trying to light only what you want visible. For the fill light, I use a small 7x7cm Lightbridge CRLS Diff2 reflector. Why this specific one? Lightbridge raised their diffusion surfaces from Diff 0 to Diff 4. 0 is essentially a mirror, maximum punch, zero diffusion. 4 is super white, which mimics a soft, cloudy sky. I use Diff 2 because I need to control fill that would preserve the label detail without killing my shadows. This granular control is exactly why I like to keep these reflectors in my kit. For the bottle backlight, I use the Nanlite Pico. It's tiny, RGB capable, and most importantly, it's small enough to hide behind a label. For the background light, I use the Nanlux Evoke 150C with a standard 45-degree reflector. Everything was set to 5400 Kelvin to keep color consistent across all fixtures. But here's one critical detail that will save you some time. All my light stands are matte black from Shape. Why does this matter? Because when you're lighting reflective surfaces, aluminum stands become mirrors. Black stands solve this problem, and that's why I always like grip stands in black. Before we get into the specific setup, here's my general rule of thumb when lighting glass or any reflective surface. If you don't want it visible on a product, keep it behind the subject. In this case, I positioned the FC500B spotlight behind and below the bottle. Even though I'm using a spotlight with controlled spill, the glass will still catch light from the fixture itself. By placing it behind the product, I'm hiding it. And even if it were to reflect on a glass, it would appear as a small edge light on a back instead of a white speck on a product. Think about what the camera sees and position your sources accordingly. First, let me discuss the key light setup. I positioned a Flux 50 to camera left because that's where I wanted a primary reflection on a bottle. But I didn't just place it at a 45-degree angle and call it done. I had to move it to the far left because I wanted that reflection as far left as possible while still creating enough wrap to illuminate the label effectively. Watch this. When I first lit the Flux 50, I shaped the spotlight so the entire square reflector was illuminated edge to edge. But the problem? Those sharp corners created hard, geometric reflection in the glass that felt way too aggressive. So I adjusted. I kept a circular beam from the spotlight and feathered the edges as much as possible. This feathering, combined with the surface material used on a Flux 50, creates a reflection in the glass that feels elegant. It falls off naturally instead of cutting off abruptly. You see the difference? Hard edges draw your attention to the reflection itself, whereas feathered edges guide your eye to the form of the bottle. Now, one detail worth pointing out, you can actually see the reflection appearing on the opposite side of the neck as well, which helps reveal the three-dimensional form. It's a small detail, but it's these accumulations of small details that create a polished final image. Now, let's discuss the fill. Now, because the Flux 50 was positioned so far to the left, it didn't really wrap around the entire brand name the way I'd wanted. The right side of the label was falling into the shadow, and I was kind of losing the legibility under the Laphroaig. This is where the fill reflector comes in. By positioning that small diff 2 reflector, I was able to catch light from the Flux 50 and bounce it strategically towards the right side of the label. I wasn't trying to eliminate the shadows. I was just filling in enough light to make the brand name readable while leaving the rest of the bottle in dramatic shadow. Now for the bottle backlight, I needed to position the Nanlite Pico just below the top edge of the label where it could hide. If this bottle didn't have a label, or if the label was translucent, I would have had to rig this differently. But in this case, I improvised a small riser using whatever was nearby. Sometimes the best grip solution is whatever works in the moment. This light has one job: to bring the green glass to life by sculpting these shoulders and adding texture. Watch what happens when I adjust the angle and position of the light. Here, the bottle just looks a little too muddy. And here, it's way too bright. It draws attention away from the label. Now at this position, you get that beautiful green glow, and the slope of the shoulders becomes a defining feature of the composition. Think of this like a catch light on an actor's eyes. It's a small detail, but it makes everything feel alive. Without it, the bottle sits there, but with it, the bottle has presence. An important distinction here: this lighting works because everything is locked off. The camera's on a tripod, the bottle isn't moving, and I can obsess over the exact placement of every reflection down to the millimeter. If this were a hero shot for a product commercial where the camera is moving on a slider or the bottle is rotating on a turntable, it would warrant a completely different approach. In motion, those reflections shift. What looks perfect from one angle might look terrible from another angle seconds later. If you want to see how I would light the same bottle for a commercial with camera movement instead of a still photograph, let me know in the comments. And if enough people want that breakdown, I can make that video in the future. Now on to the last element, the background. I'm shooting on gray seamless paper, and initially I wanted to keep it in complete darkness for a super moody look. But that created a problem. Zero separation between the subject and the background. The bottle just kind of floated in the void with no depth. So I tried using a strip box to backlight this scene, but it felt too easy, and again, I wanted to only go with hard light for this scene. So I pointed the Evoke 150C towards a specific area of the background to accomplish three things. 1. Create depth. The gradient from dark to light gives the image dimension. 2. I wanted to add separation between the bottle and the background so that the silhouette reads clearly. And 3. I wanted to create a natural vignette. By keeping the light concentrated behind and slightly above the bottle, your eye is naturally drawn to the subject instead of wandering around in the frame. Now I did catch one thing, and if I were to shoot this again, I would angle the 150C more specifically to illuminate the area behind the neck of the bottle right here. That would create even more separation in the one area where the dark bottle meets the dark background. But this amount of background felt just right. Just enough to support the composition without stealing focus. So that's the full setup. 3 lights, 2 precision reflectors, and strategic positioning to control exactly where the reflections appear on a mirror-like surface. I also used 4x4 solid floppies to eliminate the reflection from the white walls in this room. The final image has depth, sophistication, and it reveals the form of the bottle through intentional reflections instead of fighting them. Now one last step I want to mention, the color grading. I processed this image using Dehancer Pro for Lightroom Classic. Dehancer is a great tool that gives me a lot of control, and I genuinely reach for it more for my commercial work now. If you're into film emulation and you want to try it out, you can use my code AlfredFilm10 at dehancer.com for 10% off. Now if you've made it this far, you now understand something most product photographers don't. Hard light on reflective surfaces isn't a problem, it's just another tool in the tool belt. 3 things to remember. 1. Position hard sources behind your subject to control where reflections appear. 2. Use small reflectors to fill strategically without contaminating your shadows. 3. Backlight brings clear or translucent surfaces to life. Don't skip it. Apply these principles to any glass, metal, or glossy surface and you'll start getting professional results. Practice, experiment, and keep learning. What product or subject should I light next? I'll pick one for the next video. Subscribe if you want more lighting breakdowns like this. And if you're building a brand that needs this level of visual storytelling, whether it's product photography, a commercial video, or a full content strategy, reach out. Links in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.